Well, welcome to Headliners, your first look at tomorrow's papers with me, Mark Dolan, tonight in the company of the brilliant comedians Scott Capurro and Leo Kearse. Let's start with tomorrow's front pages, and we begin with the Daily Mail. They are leading with the following. Kwasi's boost for families. Kwasi Kwarteng, the new Chancellor, is drawing up plans for a fresh round of tax cuts to help families struggling with the cost of living. There's more to come, he said. We've only been here 19 days. I want to see over the next year people retain more of their income because I believe it's the British people that are going to drive this economy. Next up, we'll go to the Telegraph. And they lead with, US will take catastrophic action if Putin uses nuclear weapons. Also, trans charity gives chest flatteners to children against parental consent. And immigration must fall amid growth drive, Liz Truss told, by cabinet members. The Guardian next, Starmer, I will reinstate 45p tax to back public services. And Europe fears upheaval as Italy lurches to the right. Financial Times, Kwarteng pledges more tax cuts as Tory fears for sterling mount. Daily Mirror next, Neville blasts Tory madness. Tax cuts for rich are immoral. This according to football legend and Sky Sports commentator Gary Neville. The Times now, pay pain for workers as public sector squeezed. Millions of public sector workers face a 2-year pay squeeze before the general election after Kwasi Kwarteng said he would go further in cutting taxes. Also, universities fight the spread of drugs on campus. Universities UK are developing a plan to tackle the use of cocaine, date rape drugs and smart drugs that are designed to enhance academic performance. OK, and now we've got the Express. Truss pledges to build world-beating economy. The Prime Minister wants to overhaul the tax system, slash red tape for small businesses and reform planning laws. She tells the Telegraph, we've only just begun. And the Daily Star. Qgate crashers. Your name's not on the list. You can come in. Qgate took a new twist last night when it was revealed that Holly Willoughby and Philip Schofield were not on the VIP list to see the Queen lying in state, but they were allowed in anyway. That story just rumbles along, doesn't it? And those are your front pages. So we kick off with Monday's Guardian. And have Labour discovered the secret to electoral success? Singing. Scott.
Who knew, right? Labour decided to sing the national anthem at its conference this weekend in Liverpool. The first time it's ever happened. What do you think? Good idea?
Well, look, I think the optics are good because sometimes the Labour Party, especially under Jeremy Corbyn, the previous leader, was that they were unpatriotic, that they thought that somehow, like having the flag of St George in your front garden was a bit proletarian.
I don't really understand that, but I do understand what Corbyn means. He did say in an interview just this morning, I think, or yesterday morning, that he said he didn't understand the point of it, that it seemed odd, it had never been done before, and that Britain isn't really an outwardly nationalistic country, never really has been. So what's the point of displaying it in this way, especially at this conference right now? But obviously, say for the optics, the Queen's just passed away, and it looked like the best thing to do, a good thing to do. They were expecting protests, and there were none.
Jeremy Corbyn wanted the Iranian national anthem sung instead.
It is pretty.
It did look a bit naff, I thought. You know, you saw the Keir Starmer with the guitars and everything behind him. He was like, you know, one of those groovy vicars.
It did look a bit silly, yeah. And Angela looked a bit awkward with her hands folded in front of her like she's being punished. It all seemed a bit cold and sacrificial and over-rehearsed.
Yeah.
But again, they were expecting protests, screams. No one yelled. No one said anything, especially during the moment of silence in respect to the Queen. Some people didn't sing. Some Republicans decided not to. Apparently, a group called the Labour Left Internationalists thought that it was strange, comical actually, to see leadership doubling down as monarchists. And I think that's a bit of an extreme comment. I think a lot of people might have respect for the Queen, might like the singing of that, might not like the monarchy at the same time. I think people are more complicated than criticism gives them the chance to be. Although it does all sound a bit... when people sing the national anthem in the U.S., no one knows the lyrics properly. No one really knows the tune. And I do feel kind of like this is a mess. Just sit down.
Really? Although, do you not think, Leo, that it demonstrates the extent to which Keir Starmer has reshaped this Labour Party, that he's made it patriotic. They're not afraid of the flag anymore.
Yes.
He's trying to rehabilitate the brand, isn't he?
Absolutely. I mean, he's done what Cameron did for the Tories. He's made the party electable again. He's brought them back to the centre. Instead of Jeremy Corbyn with his, like cloth hat and, close ties with terrorists, he's made them, the voice of the people again. So I think they're now, the next story is all about how they're really looking strong in the polls and possibly going to take the next election.
And it's good in this country that you vote for the party, not for the person, because he has almost no charm whatsoever. I think he's one of the most boring speakers I've ever been subjected to. It feels like I'm being talked to by a radiator.
Well, what I don't like about him is I find him pompous as well and quite moralising.
But I think that's almost a strength at the moment, because he really does come across as like a serious technocrat. And I think after Boris, what we want is a bit less charisma and a bit more...
Yeah, but can I just... Briefly, Leo, can we refute this brand of him being the sort of statesman and this safe pair of hands? Because a few examples of his recent political judgment were to back Jeremy Corbyn as Prime Minister, as somebody that more or less sided with Russia over the Salisbury attack. His judgment on COVID was that we should have had more lockdowns and more mask mandates.
Yeah, but any left-wing socialist government is going to want more government.
Well, for sure. They absolutely love that. It's a kind of land grab of our rights.
And anyway, in the Salisbury attack, they did kill spies, or try to, so that's probably a good thing, right?
I guess it's something to say for it. Yeah. And then the third thing that he's got on his record is that he was the architect of Labour's disastrous Brexit policy, which is effectively to call for a second referendum.
Yeah.
So the idea
Tell
that
everybody
this guy...
that they got it wrong.
Yeah.
You got it wrong, so we're going to force another one on you.
He says, I'm the really sensible guy with like a sort of smart haircut and I'm in a suit and I look like a Prime Minister. It's like, but a lot of the big calls, I would argue, wide of the mark.
But the thing is, Liz Truss does look like someone you want to slap at Sainsbury's. She does. She looks. She's in your way. She's wheeling around her market. She's coked out of her mind. I just feel like with him, I feel like he does seem stoic and stable. I agree with you, but that's because he doesn't move. He looks paralyzed from the neck up.
He's the Joe Biden of British politics.
Is Liz Truss somebody that you would have a fight with on Black Friday?
A little bit, yeah.
It'd be like wrestling a flat screen TV from her grip.
Yeah, it's someone you want to nail against a wall and punch. I just feel like I didn't mind Corbyn because he seemed like he had dirty nails and I could keep up. With this guy, I feel like he's just gonna land on me and I can't get up.
I wouldn't want Jeremy Corbyn making me a sandwich.
No,
Keir Starmer, I would let make me a sandwich.
By the way, it's a quote, a Scott Capurro joke. It's somebody you want to nail to the wall and punch, right? And then we can do what I like.
Yeah, exactly.
See, I remember all these
real
jokes.
crowd pleaser.
Always. Let's talk about, as you mentioned, Leo, that story about Labour in the polls.
So, yes, they've already done polls, and Liz Truss could lose 146 Tory MPs as Labour retakes swathes of the red wall, according to the polls that have been done. This is the Savanta Comrades survey. I think other ones have been done. But this puts Labour a clear 12 points ahead of the Conservatives on 45% to 33% for Liz Truss's party. And it's a bit of a shame because, I think Liz Truss has come in and made some, she's implemented some good policies. I think the tax cuts are being unfairly maligned in the press. They're actually very progressive. They're very good. They're tax cuts for workers as opposed to people who've accrued wealth. But politics isn't about doing what's right. It's about getting elected and being seen to be, helping wealthy people. The way I see it, we're paying more tax than people pay in Norway right now. You know what I mean? You couldn't really pay any more tax than we're paying right now. And for Liz Truss to come in and bring that down a little bit, just down to sensible levels that we were paying a few years ago, is a great thing to do. And it's a tax on income, so, for people who are striving and going out there and making money and making the economy, creating the economic growth that we all need to pay for all the nonsense we get in the public
I agree
sector.
with you, because I think that's the problem with the optics of it are a disaster. We can agree that.
Yeah.
Scrapping the cap on bankers' bonuses, no extra windfall tax on energy firms, and if you make 150 grand a year, you're going to save money. That all looks disastrous, but I would argue good fiscal policy is like sausage making, right? The process is not pretty, but the end product is delicious.
And also, the papers have been reporting it as if they say the tax cuts are being paid for from borrowing. The borrowing isn't paying for tax cuts. Tax cuts are free. The borrowing is to pay for all the public sector nonsense that all our taxes get wasted on. We've got an incredibly bloated public sector full of, equality, diversity and inclusion departments that don't do anything apart from gum up the productivity, gum up, getting people's way when they're trying to do their work.
Or provide you with material for your comment.
Full disclosure, Leo, you're only here actually as a box-ticking exercise.
Just because I'm transgender.
Yes, exactly.
Correct.
Yeah.
We also wanted to include you because you're Scottish, you're unusually tall, and the facial hair is unconventional. So we just decided to reach out, didn't we, Scotty?
Yeah, we felt bad.
Scott, the only thing, and no one dares to mention this, and Leo's hinted at it, which is the A word, careful, austerity.
Oh, right.
Because the big credit crunch of 2008 was a financial crash, and there was a credit crunch 2009, 2010, global economic downturn. So what the Tory government, the coalition did, is that they cut spending massively. It was called austerity. No one's talking about that this time round, but surely that would actually be that would be the silver bullet.
I think people got tired of it. I think people moved on, like with the pandemic. I think they're like, we've done this. Let's try something else.
Yeah.
That's the thing about the British public, I've noticed being a foreigner coming here, is what I like about it is that people do get restless after a while. That's why you change leaders, not because one's better or one's worse. It's like, I want a new face. I want someone else staring at me for a while. I mean, I need to hear a new voice. This is blah, blah, blah.
It's like X Factor or something. But did you take that point about austerity? Because that's what you hinted at there.
Yeah.
The elephant in the room is public spending, isn't it?
Yeah, and when we talk about austerity, we're not talking about, bringing back poor houses or, people being cast out into the street. We're just talking about cutting all these bloated public sector, nonsensical jobs. I used to have one. I was a Safer Communities Development Coordinator. Any job title that's got 4 words in it is nonsense. We don't need these people. If we fire them, the job market is really healthy. It's thriving. We've got more positions than we've got people to fill. So if we fire public sector people, then they'll go into the private sector where they'll generate income, generate wealth.
But higher pay would be good. A higher hourly wage would be good.
Well, look, Leo, before we get to the next story, it's about immigration. They always boast that the NHS is the largest employer in Europe. Why is that a boast? Why is that a good thing?
There's a lot of sick people. Look around. Look at you two. You're a mess.
Good point. I do feel a bit jaundiced tonight.
Need help.
Can we talk about immigration? Because it seems that Liz Truss has discovered the best way to stop illegal immigration, and that's to make it legal.
Exactly.
How clever.
It's basically a Brexit reversal. It's basically the government saying, you're right, Brexit was bad. We're going to try again.
Does that mean that you can now stay, do you think?
I'm here for good.
Right.
I'm stuck in
because I have to tell you, there's a Home Office van outside waiting for you.
You're just flirting with me now. I hope the windows are tinted so we can get on with it. Liz Truss is going to review visa schemes in a bid to ease UK labour shortages. As we've all heard in the press, there's a shortage of labour in this country. Partially, people tend to blame it on the Brexit policy. A lot of people aren't coming in. They don't know how. They're afraid. A lot of people have left, especially in the NHS. A lot of people, nurses and doctors left. So she says that they've removed some of the lines you had to cross, some of the hoops you had to jump through. Apparently now she'd like to see visa fees lowered. She'd like to waive employers' usual duty to prove that there's no one else that can do the job. And in longer term, migrants do not have to meet the $35,800 salary threshold required to settle in the UK after 5 years. So in other words, we were bad. Now we're going to try to be good.
It's confusing, isn't it, Leo? Because Suella Braverman, who's the new Home Secretary, is very hawkish on immigration. She wants to get numbers down. Liz Truss, who seems to be looking at everything through the lens of the economy, is saying, well, no, if we've got labour shortages, we'll boost the economy by getting more skilled workers in. But then that won't play that well with all of the right-wingers in the Tory grassroots who voted for her 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what does she do?
Well, this is the trouble with politicians. They see a country as an economy rather than, a country as a country with an economy to serve the country.
You should always put the economy forward. I think that's what took down Theresa May, though. She put migration forward before the economy.
But immigration is, it's a palliative. It's like steroids for the economy. It's a short-term fix. So you import loads of people who are working age men, and they can do the work.
It's Botox.
A better long-term,
deep-fried Mars bar.
A better long-term solution to the problem is to train our people here and make sure people are having childron here. We're facing a demographic cliff. People aren't having children.
And we've got a million vacancies.
Part of the reason is that I've got one coming this week. I'm doing my part. But part of the reason is that people can't afford housing. They can't afford the cost of living crisis, and even before that, they can't afford housing to have a child. You don't want to have a child and not be able to support yourself.
Yeah.
So the housing crisis isn't helped by bringing loads of people into the country. I think we should do something to balance that out, and so we can have sustainable immigration and also have people having children here.
And have more sex is what you're saying. People need to have more sex.
Yeah,
Well,
we need to encourage British people to have more sex. We might need some paper bags. But
Let's not get carried away. You'll have to negotiate that with Mrs. Dolan, who's probably in bed now. She likes.
I'll give her a call.
She got 2 cold cucumbers on her eyeballs, and that's it. She's done for the evening. Just a Stephen King novel, and I cry myself to sleep. We've got 2 stories before the break. Let's have a look at the Iranian protests, which are spreading to the UK, Leo.
Yeah, so riot police have arrested protesters trying to storm Iranian embassies in London and Paris. This is after a 22-year-old Iranian woman was arrested and beaten to death and possibly tortured and raped by Iranian morality police. Obviously, in Iran, there's an Islamic theocracy that's the government, and they're very, very strict. They suppress the population. So people are incredibly angry, obviously, and we're seeing mass protests across Iran, possibly regime-changing protests. This is the first time, and we've seen waves of protests before. This is the first time they've come out and really been quite vocal about regime change, and also the men have come out to support the women. It's not just the women going out and burning their hijabs.
Or cutting their hair off. And it's also all age groups too, young and old.
Yeah.
And I think it was a terrible crime, and the police claimed she'd had a heart attack in the van. That's why she died. And, of course, the more lies that happen, the more angry people get. 22 years old, right? She was standing in the metro. They just arrested her, and they just beat her to death. And this kind of crime, obviously, is perpetrated by kind of a government, if you can call it that in Iran, that does not support the rights of women at all, and never has. Never has, not since 1979. So I think people have finally, it seems, have had it. 46 cities in Iran are claiming protests, and the police have no idea what to do. They can't control it.
Is there any hope that this could precipitate the downfall of the regime?
Absolutely. I mean, we're talking to an Iranian woman earlier who believes, this is going to definitely bring down the regime this time, and I could believe it could happen. I mean, we're seeing mass protests across Iran. They've had to shut down the internet, shut down all social media to try and quell the protests and stop people recording them and also organising them. And in this country, in London and Paris, they've been trying to storm the embassies. They've been smashing the gates and throwing furniture at the windows.
But when the Shah left, we were hoping for an improvement in 1979, and we didn't get one. And now, what are we expecting? Who's there to take over?
Who replaces it?
I mean, who's the opposition? There is none.
Well, Iran, the Iranian people are generally, well educated, and they're quite sort of Western in their outlook. There's a lot of Western links there as well. So, I don't see it as the same as somewhere like Afghanistan, where you don't have that sort of educated middle class who could sustain a democracy.
And a history of freedom in the 70s.
Yeah, there is true, some freedoms. But also the protests are also by young people who feel as though they don't have a future. You're right, they are well educated, but the economy is toppling. And these are people who feel like they have nowhere to go, nothing to do. There's no reason to not protest. They really don't have anything at risk.
No, Leo, there's a lot of anger about this. Is it as bad as Holly and Phil jumping the queue?
How dare they? How could they?
I mean, I think on a scale of that's got to be worse, hasn't it?
Absolutely not. I mean, it's just the cost of living crisis. We can't afford the petrol to actually go and throw furniture through the windows.
They were not on the official list, so you got to wait. Have a burger. Calm down.
You got to wait. Look, can we finish this part, Scott, with Monday's Mirror? Russian men won't be going on holiday anytime soon.
I saw some men from St. Petersburg. I was just in Russia when the battle started.
Is that right?
I was there February 23rd.
You weren't involved, were you?
No, not my fault.
Because I know you do cause trouble.
I'm a fan of the people, not my fault. But we were there. We met a lot of lovely people in St. Petersburg. And again, they seem European. They feel like they are.
Yes.
And I saw some interviewed on the BBC last night who said, I am a lawyer. I live in St. Petersburg. I know that if I don't go to fight, that the police will arrest me, torture me, and kill me. But I'd rather die than kill my brothers in the Ukraine. And I think they have not. There's been no conscription in Moscow or St. Petersburg. They're finding men in the eastern cities and towns that are more poverty-driven, that are more willing to fight. But the borders are insane. People are trying to escape. They have been, and they're going to shut the borders on Wednesday. At least Putin threatens to. He said, "That's it. You cannot cross after that." So they must be debacle right now. It must be a nightmare. So
Horrific.
I think, these people feel as though they've made a mistake in probably not protesting earlier.
Yeah.
Maybe they did.
Yeah, and it's not a good look. When Russia was bombing Ukraine and nobody protested,
Right.
and now they're like, oh wait, you're going to get called up to fight, and now they're protesting.
And we were there, and we were sitting in McDonald's across from Red Square, reading about the war on our phones with the comics I was working
It's good,
with.
by the way, it's good that you embed yourself in the culture. I think it's
Busiest restaurant in Moscow, and I like the fries. And comics I was working with telling me, oh, it's all fake. That's all fake news. I'm like, it's not fake news. It's your own reporting in your own country.
being lied to.
wait.
But it was insane. I did say some. I was warned by friends, be careful. And the closest I came to a bomb was my act in Moscow. I made the mistake of eroticizing Putin, but I thought they'd all seen the photos of him in the woods without a shirt on.
Correct.
Slightly erect. And it was strange to me also because they didn't think we'd make jokes about that, and of course we did.
Of course we did, yeah. Speaking of which, I think, Leo, a lot of men are suddenly getting married in order to not be conscripted.
Yeah, people are finding all sorts of excuses. I mean, we've seen it with the Vietnam draft. People fled to Canada or came up with bone spurs.
I don't think anyone will
whatever.
go to Canada this time.
No, that's a bit of a tricky one. But people are fleeing to
Lithuania,
Mongolia,
Estonia,
Lithuania, anywhere they can get to, basically.
Yeah.
Like Scott says, they're taking people from the further away places. But there isn't the infrastructure to train and mobilise all these people as troops, and they're arresting people. And then, once they're arrested, that means they can be forcibly conscripted. So you're arresting protesters who don't want to fight and then making them fight. They're not going to be the
It'll
best
take
soldiers.
months to prepare them. It's ridiculous.
No, it's quite crazy. You have got stories of men just desperately marrying anyone so they don't have to conscript, which is bad news for the war effort. Good news for ugly Russian women.
Or just Russian women.
And there's a few. I've been online, and let me tell you, it's rough out there.
Your poor wife.
Coming up in part 2, we've got Chunky Cops, the continuation of Q-Gate, and what does it take to become a prince? I'll see you in approximately, my maths aren't great, 120 seconds. Welcome back to Headliners, your first look at tomorrow's papers with me, Mark Dolan. Tonight in the company of two absolute comic legends, we have Scott Capurro. And I'm delighted to say we also have my very good friend Leo Kearse. Now let's have a look at our other stories from tomorrow's papers. Monday's Mirror with the ongoing saga of the greatest crime a Brit can commit. queue barging, Leo.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the Queen, at the Queen's funeral as well. What a place. Of all the places to do it, I mean, why don't you just wipe your bum on the Union Jack, Philip Schofield? So apparently, they've done some investigation, the mayor has, and Holly Willoughby and Philip Schofield names were not on the official Westminster list. The duo were still ushered in. So apparently they created a hoo-ha. A hoo-ha. Can you believe it?
What, do you know who I am?
Do you know hoo-ha I am? When they turned up at Westminster Hall with 2 colleagues last week to film a special segment for the ITV show, so they skipped the lengthy queue in order to see the coffin, and they faced a public petition calling for them to be sacked. I don't know why they didn't just come out and be like, listen, I'm Philip Schofield. I'm so much richer than you.
Own it.
I deserve to see the
Out of my way, plebs. And plus, he's a naughty boy. He hit on me once at a BBC party.
Is that right?
Yeah, he did. And I'm like, no. And then about an hour later, we're in the men's. And
you changed your mind?
Yeah, well, a couple of drinks, and I'm anybody. But booze makes you brave. It's just, I'm just saying he's a rule breaker. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, there is a brilliant. Kai Humphries, the comedian, and he tweeted saying it's peak Britain that you can have an affair. Your wife, you've been married years and you're sort of dating this young boy that she doesn't know about, and everyone's okay with that. You jump a queue, you're the enemy. Yeah. By the way, very briefly, Leo, do they come back from this, that pair?
I think they're irredeemably tainted.
Really?
And yeah.
He has very thick fingers. That's how I remember that.
More detail on Philip Schofield's anatomy shortly. We'll work our way down. Let's have a look at Monday's Sun now.
That was my strategy.
What's happening in the Sun? King Charles has got quite chubby fingers as well, hasn't he?
Bloated. I think he's ill. I don't think he's going to last for long. I think they're going to hand that crown to William as soon as.
Long live the king.
Well, I like him actually. I think he's a bit irreverent, and he understands that about himself.
Do you think he's a bon vivant? Is that your impression with him?
Well, he does wear an ascot. I think that's the first and most necessary requirement.
What's an ascot?
Oh, what we call them ascots in America. I think they're just scarves, neck scarves here. But he wears them around here under an open collar shirt.
Oh, I see. Is that a red flag or something?
Cravat. I think we call them cravats
That's
here.
nice too. That's a good drag name for you also. King Charles. He won't decide on the titles for Archie and Lilibet. I think the titles should be Kid 1 and Kid 2. Or just how about No Chance for Happiness 1 and Less Chance because she's a girl 2. They could call them that. But they won't because they're waiting for Harry's memoir to come out before they label the kids with titles. They're worried what Harry's going to say. And he delayed his memoir because the Queen died. But the memoir wasn't meant to come out to December, and she's dead. Let's get the book out.
She's what?
And title the kids. She's gone.
Okay.
We've lost her.
Well, look, it is a crazy story, isn't it? But let's move on now to Mark Lawrenson. This is an interesting sports story in The Guardian. An old white man loses his job. Leo, are you worried?
Yeah, I am, and we should all be worried on this panel. But Mark Lawrenson, the sports commentator, he claims the BBC dropped him because he's 65 and a white male. Although, to be honest, 65, that's retirement age. So, that might be a good time to drop people. But, he's covered 6 men's World Cups for the BBC, said that the corporation is frightened to death of upsetting anybody. In all my time at the BBC, nobody ever said, you can't say this or that, but the woke thing drives me bonkers. I've been here for 20-odd years. I think I might know what to say and what not to say. He blames the sort of woke culture on him getting sacked. But then, is he actually that good at sports commentating?
Isn't there also an element sometimes where these people think they're just owed a living for the rest of their career?
Like Alan Partridge.
Yes. Well, he was replaced by a female who he says she's doing real well, the best she can. He speaks very patronizingly about her, and so she can barely keep up. But we all do our best to help her out. And he did say in one interview, I didn't interrupt her. I didn't. I tried not to. I mean, it was her interview. So it's her interview and it's her gig. Back off.
Can I just quickly cancel myself?
Yeah.
And say that I think that if it's women's football, I'd like to see female players or ex-female managers commentating on it. And if it's men's football, I'd like to see men talking about it. Is that a crime?
No,
if I just cancelled myself?
No,
there?
It's just sexist. I don't think that the gender matters at all when people are talking about sport. I'm not.
But I think when you watch Sky and it's like, let's say it's the Champions League, you know, and the people in the gallery are Rio Ferdinand, who won the European Cup with Manchester United, and Graham Souness, Liverpool legend. You know, these people that have been there, got the T-shirt, and then you just tick the box by having, let's say, a female soccer player there. It was like, well, it's the male game.
And people say that
right?
you know, the female soccer team did amazingly well, they beat Germany or whatever, and it's like, yeah, but they were playing the German women's team. It's not the same. It's much easier.
When just to balance it out, I would say that if it was women's tennis, let's imagine that Serena Williams is playing Emma Raducanu. I'd like in the gallery, I'd like Martina Navratilova.
Yeah.
And I don't know, Billie Jean King.
Right.
Because they bloody won everything.
Yeah.
And they're talking about people that are now playing.
I watch a lot of volleyball, which is a very popular sport in every other country other than this one. And I was watching women's competition today.
You're watching women's what?
Women's competition.
Glad you finished that word.
And thank you. And I did swallow it. And there were men and women commenting on that, and I had no problem with it. I'm not quite sure why you two do too. It's strange to me. It's just a sport, and they're just people.
I guess you're right. I think you make a fair point, and I will reflect on that. Let's have a look at Monday's Independent. It sounds like victim-blaming Ukraine isn't good for ticket sales, Scott.
I don't think you're going to reflect on that. I feel like you're lying.
No, definitely. No. I think that's, it is a point.
Yeah, have a chat with your wife about it if she's still talking to you.
She's going to re-educate me. Don't worry about that.
The Pink Floyd bassist, am I saying that right? Bassist.
Yeah. Does he wear an ascot, this guy?
I was stressed about that. I'm not quite sure. Not around his neck, at least. Roger Waters denies cancelling his Polish gigs due to a backlash over Ukraine comments. He made some comments online. The Pink Floyd bassist said that the war in the Ukraine, he blamed it on extreme nationalists, setting Ukraine on a path for disaster. And because of that comment, a lot of people were worried about him. And he's worried now that the Polish government is going to pull his gigs in April of next year. The thing is, I don't have a problem with his comments. They're just his opinion. Also, I mean, the Ukraine is Syria. It is Russia and the U.S. fighting in a foreign land because they're too gutless to fight in their own. Yeah. It is using mercenaries the way the U.S. and Russia both are. And supplying them with arms.
No, the Ukrainian army is pretty much purely Ukrainian men.
The Americans have been there for over 10 years.
Yeah, but they're not mercenaries. I mean, we train. Britain is training enormous numbers of Ukrainian troops, but it's not like a mercenary. It's not like the Wagner Group in Russia, which is just, and they're emptying jails in Russia to get them to the front line. It's disgusting what Russia's doing. And I think, Roger Waters, it's great that a new generation is finding reasons to hate Roger Waters, because he consistently comes up with the worst opinions on Israel, on anything. Now Ukraine is blaming...
But isn't he allowed to? You're the king of free speech.
Well, honestly, he's allowed to, but this is now he's got, don't expect to be playing big, adulatory concerts in Kiev when you denounce Ukraine.
You don't like cancel culture, do you?
Yeah, exactly.
I do when it doesn't happen to me. It's really when it happens to me that I have a problem.
I've got to say, he looks good for 79. He looks good.
He's got guns and everything, hasn't he?
The whole thing.
Yeah, he's getting it done, I've got to say. Yeah. And his fingers are less fat than those of Philip Schofield and King Charles.
Yes, they don't retain a lot of salt, those fingers.
Quick on the bass frets.
Right. But they retain a lot of other things, those fingers, but we'll get to that on another occasion. Can we finish this section on fat cops, please, Leo?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry?
Fat cops.
Right.
Fat Cops. I'm afraid
Schofield.
I'm afraid Fat Cops isn't a TV show that's coming out, because I'd watch that. Fat Cops. But apparently, they've shown the trouser ordering of police forces across the country, which gives an indication of how fat our police officers are now. So thousands of pairs of XXL trousers with waists of over 40 inches or larger have been ordered in for police officers, official figures. So Met Police, get this, they ordered 7,340 pairs, which included the sizes 40-inch, 50-inch, 52-inch. That's like bigger than my TV. And a whopping 56-inch. That's the equivalent of 4.5 feet around. That's the circumference of a police officer.
That's a damaged car. That is a damaged...
So, obviously they're not going to be able to chase after
poor horse. Oh, that horse.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, the horses. So this is why they're going after people for internet crimes and misgendering online, because those people are fat as well. So they can have a very
and
low...
they can catch them.
They can have a low-speed chase.
They can swap wardrobes.
They don't jump over the fences. They just go through them.
Yeah, it is a shocker.
Yeah.
And it's actually, in some ways, I mean, when it comes to the military, it's a national security issue, isn't it, in America and the UK?
It's also a health issue for the
too fat to
NHS.
fight, and it's a health issue for the NHS. And, Scott, it's the pandemic we're ignoring, which is obesity.
Yes. A lot of people put on weight. Right?
Here we go. You ready? I'm cancelling myself again tonight. An evening of cancellation. We overreacted to COVID, and we are underreacting to obesity.
Yeah, and we overate during COVID, too. People shoved it in. I mean, I didn't.
You shoved it in, did they?
No, I didn't shove it in. No, I resisted. I restricted
It's not
myself.
like you.
Well, the government locked us indoors right next to the fridge. What were we supposed to do?
Yeah. I mean, but they also locked us, next door to the open allotment where I grew my own carrots.
Is that right? Oh, well done.
I had
You're
time, why
very
not?
green-fingered, aren't you, Scott
I have some
Capurro?
large zucchini.
Nick, who knew that Scott spent so much of lockdown on his knees?
You want to see my kale?
Yes, please. Now, that's it for part 2. Coming up are the silly stories of part 3. We're going to go a little lighter. Spy Mums, Nige Fest, a festival for people called Nigel, and how likely are you to have intimate relations with a robot? Well, I would say never say never. I'll see you in 2.
Nice melody.
Welcome back to Headliners with me, Mark Dolan, your first look at tomorrow's papers. Tonight, we're joined by the bad boys of the comedy circuit. On the naughty step, Scott Capurro, and in handcuffs, because that's how he likes it, Leo Kearse. Now, let's have a look at Monday's Telegraph. And if you want to order anything from Marks & Spencer's online, you better get rid of your old Nokia, Scott, or the Nokia.
Oh, right. Yes. Because apparently people who don't know how to use or operate, don't have a cell phone to operate, they're not able to order online from certain stores, like M&S, like John Lewis. John Lewis requires when you make a purchase, just happen today, that you approve it on your cell phone. And there are some people that don't have access to one or have poor, service in their neighborhood.
Yeah.
And so they're trying to find other ways to, approve of people's purchases online. But some stores are just moving on quickly and don't want to deal with it.
No, that's right. And this relates to M&S Bank, which is a shame. What do you think, Leo? Is this just kind of survival of the fittest? Just you wake up, this is 2021, buy a phone?
I could understand if this was like some, trendy new shop that, sold bitcoins and whatevers. But this is Marks and Spencer's. Of course they should be, older people should be able to use Marks and Spencer's products, Marks and Spencer's banking. And they can't because they can't use the verification if they don't have a mobile phone. So, they need to send round a little boy in a cap to verify instead of a text message. A little telegram to verify
it's
your
fraud
bank.
prevention, and fraud has become such a huge thing on online purchases, especially during the pandemic. And I think there's no other way for them to protect themselves. And really, what's an 80-year-old woman at home who's bedridden buying stuff online for? What is she doing?
She can't go to the shops if she's bedridden.
Doesn't need anything. She got all she needs right there. She got a bed. She's ridden. She got it. She's fine, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Doesn't need shoes.
Charmed life.
Yes.
Not like us youngsters going out, earning a crust of bread. By the way, correction from my brilliant producer, Sophia, which is that it's 2022, not 2021. I didn't get the memo. So 2022 already, yeah. And by the way, has anything happened this year?
You're still writing the date with the... It's tough. It's tough to remember.
Yes, numbers are hard.
Monday's Times now, and it seems like Scotland knows what a woman is, finally, Leo.
So Scotland could follow Spain in giving women period pain leave. So as well as sick leave and all the rest of it, you can now get time off for having period pain. So the party's conference, the SNP, the Scottish National Party, the sort of nationalist party that currently rules Scotland with an iron fist, is going to debate whether to follow in the footsteps of the Spanish government and give people in Scotland paid menstrual leave. But this is surely going to discourage... we're trying to close the gender pay gap, which exists because women, go off sick when they have periods and they have babies and stuff like that. So surely this is going to discourage companies from hiring women if they think they're going to be just phoning in sick once a month.
I think it's a worthy a worthy explanation, though. Women should be allowed if they can't go in because of that problem that they're having with their periods, and they should be able to say that without people saying, "Oh, come on." It should be a sick leave.
Right.
Oh, come on.
But what you don't want it to be, Scotty, is you don't want it to be like the duvet day.
Right.
Where it's just kind of in your arsenal of rights as a worker. So, today's the period day.
But I think usually in an office, I worked in an office for years, usually people call in sick for a day. Most people assume it's because they want a day off. I mean, that's why most people call in sick.
Yeah, nobody's that sick.
No, not really.
No, too right. Look, let's have a look now at the Mail on Monday. And the Mail newspaper, it turns out that bullies are now parents.
God, Scott. I love this story. I love this story because, MonsterNet, also known as Mumsnet, is just, it's a cesspool of anger and resentment. I mean, I've gone on there just for the laughs. Women just go after each other about their children. And you cannot criticize someone the way they raise their... I've lost friends over this, saying, shouldn't your child be at the table by now? That's it. I've lost that friendship. Why is that kid on the floor over there? We're having a meal. Get him in his chair.
Good.
But what do I know? I'm a gay. And now gays can adopt. It's too many rights. I hope you don't get sanctimonious when you have your kid and you can't take criticism, because it's going to be a meatloaf, and I'm going to say it. But on Mumsnet, women say a lot of stuff to one another. And this woman was she was saying, I put my kid in school. I went to pick my kid up. I saw a man in the schoolyard riding a bike of his child's with a tattoo on his neck. And I can't have my kid around those people and their children.
I saw that story. Yeah.
So she went, and a lot of people criticized her, called her a snob, said you're potentially racist. But a lot of people didn't. A lot of people said, I know what you mean. I don't want my child around those. We moved. We changed location, so I didn't have to deal with them anymore, those children. The way I saw one child walking to school, she said, with a Greg's in his hand. And that's it. No sausage rolls, my kid. And so we moved.
Even the vegan sausage roll, because that's quite middle class, isn't it?
I guess so. But it's not, home-prepared jam. Is it?
Of course it's not.
Of course it's not. So, yes, apparently there's a lot of snobbery and potential racism on Mumsnet. Stay away if you're woke.
Well, it's not a good laugh. It's not the first time it's been criticised, because Mumsnet was a lot of the mums were sort of gender critical of biological males who might want to dress up with enormous fake breasts and parade in front of the children. They were. For some reason, they thought that might be a bad thing. So, Mumsnet was criticised for gender-critical views and described as, I think The Guardian described it as like a far-right ecosystem. If Mumsnet, if an online forum of mothers of toddlers is your entry level, is your sort of barrier that you're measuring fascism against, that's the word's lost all its meaning.
It's so successful too. I have a friend who invested in it early on, and they're now multimillionaires from it. And it's because I think raising children is very isolating and insular. And I think when you're alone at home with the kids by yourself, all sorts of things they go, ripping through your head. And before you know it, this neighborhood is bad for us. My child needs this. And, you feel like you're not doing everything if you're not on there all the time.
Correct. Let's stay on kids and mums, especially, actually, Leo, and spy mums.
Yeah, so these women, they're mums, and they're acting as sort of private investigators. So if you need some dirt on a dodgy bloke, you can call the spy mums. So apparently 75% of their cases relate to online dating. So verifying the identity of a Tinder or Hinge match, their online dating apps, or exposing catfishing. So people use fake social media identities to deceive others. So the spy mums charge between £250 and £1,000 a day. Their clients are mainly female.
Wow.
And some of the stuff they found out. So in December, so people are getting scammed over these dating apps. In December, one client lost £69,000 to a fraudster who claimed to be the former Wet, Wet, Wet singer Marty Pellow. I mean...
They deserve to lose that money. They deserve it. They don't need that money.
I think there's, the Bible had a proverb about this, about a fool and their money. But the money taken included 15 grand for a car, so the fake Pellow said he couldn't be seen in a taxi.
Oh, my God.
And I'm pretty sure Marty Pellow doesn't mind being seen in a taxi.
Why are we doing this ourselves? Why are we wasting
You have to wonder. You have to wonder.
So, if you want to find out if you're dating the real Marty Pellow, you can phone these spy mums and they'll tell you.
Pay him £1,000 a day.
They'll tell you if you're suffering from carbon monoxide.
And what's worse, a fake Marty Pellow or a fake Gary Barlow, fake Peter Andre?
Or a fake me. You want to date a fake me.
I want the real thing, always.
Yeah.
Let's have a look now at this other story, and it's in the Daily Mail. It's a festival for people who really hate being asked what their name is.
A pub landlord stages a Nige Fest, festival for people called Nigel. There's a pub landlord who was worried about the extinction of the name Nigel, which he noticed in birth records had not been used between 2016 and 2020. So he owns a pub in some dump. Anyway, he has a pub, and he decided to have a festival as pub for Nigels, and it attracted so many more people than he thought it would. Around 500 people showed up for Nigel Smith's Nigel night.
Wonderful.
The musician was named Nigel. The people serving booze were named Nigel. Everyone in the room was named Nigel. It worked.
And was Nigel Farage there doing like a comedy set or something?
You wish.
That's what you want, isn't it?
What else could he be doing?
It's a charming name.
Yeah, it is.
Scott, has that served you well as a name over the years?
It's been all right because it's quite distinctive these days. Not a lot of Scots now. My mother wanted to name me Paris.
Okay.
And thankfully...
Were you misgendered as a baby?
I think so, maybe. My father stopped her from doing that. I wouldn't mind it now, in the 80s.
Paris Kapura.
Yeah, it would. It sounds great, actually, if I'm an artist or a
Sounds like a fragrance, doesn't it? Paris
Kapura. It's like a pole
Kapura.
dancer, right?
Yeah, all porn star.
Yeah, exactly. The whole thing, all of it. Yeah, so... No, I would have liked to.
I'd like to see the Eiffel Tower on that Paris Kapura.
How about Leo's a nice name.
It's an interesting name for Scotland, I guess. Like all my mates were called like Shuggy, Doogie, you know what I mean, or just noises.
Yeah.
But my
Including
parents,
your female mates.
Yeah, my parents decided to name me after my star sign.
Oh, that's
so,
nice.
But I got away okay. My brother's called Sagittarius.
I'm a Sagittarius, by the way. What's wrong with that?
That's exact. And your sister Pisces. She's a fishy one. We're running out of material, aren't we? Monday's Telegraph. And it sounds like you might have been able to save yourself some money, Leo. Tell me more.
Yeah, so the days of the bald head could be numbered. So there's apparently hair restoration, all these systems you can have to hide your baldness. They're becoming incredibly sophisticated, and the market is worth £12 billion, or it's going to be worth £12 billion by 2028. The market for hiding your bald patch. So there's transplants, which are more effective and affordable than ever. There's hair systems that are basically like wigs that you sort of stitch on. There's scalp tattoos. There's pills and potions that you rub into your head to restart things. There's injectables that activate stem cells and restart growth. Personally, I had a hair transplant done in Turkey, and it was £1,250, and you can get them done even cheaper now. I was over there for a show, so I thought,
why not?
When in Rome, or Istanbul, as it was. But
It's complete success.
yeah, fairly. I mean, if the light's coming at a certain angle, you can sort of see it's a bit thinner.
Right.
But yeah.
Do you have to take pills to support it, or is it just...
No, I mean, I should, but I can't be bothered.
All right.
So that's why I got surgery.
I know actors who use spray paint. I was backstage with an actor once, and he flipped his head over and started spraying his head. I thought he was kidding. Yeah. But they do. They use it for stage.
Yeah.
You've got a great head of hair. Is that the Italian genes?
All the men in my family are bald except me.
Right.
Is that
And they
right?
stare at me at family functions across the table like they want to kill me.
What a way to find out you're adopted, hey?
See, I know. If only, I wish. I always thought I was with the wrong family going on vacation. I'd be on the other beach. I'm like, I'm not with them. I don't know those people.
I think
have
being
hair.
bald can be attractive if you've got the right. If you're, Jason Statham or
Bruce Willis.
Bruce Willis.
Yeah.
But I shave my head and I've got a pointy head.
Oh.
And although some women might be attracted to that, because
Depends how you use
the
it,
baby's
doesn't it?
going to be more easier to pass.
Correct.
You might not be attracted to women who are attracted to men with pointy heads, though. That's
That's another
quite
problem.
limiting. Yeah.
I do like a conical man. Let's have a look now at our next story. And it's Monday's Star. And have you ever fancied your chances with Wall-E, Leo?
So they've done a study to find out which personality types are more likely to have sex with a robot. I'm so glad they're working on this instead of curing cancer. This is researchers from Concordia University, which I suspect only exists online. They measured the attitudes of nearly 500 adults to identify which personality traits are more likely to engage with erotic technologies. This is going to blow your mind. Apparently, the two traits that make you more likely to have sex with a robot are erotophilia, so wanting to have sex, and sexual sensation seeking, so wanting to have sex. So if you want to have sex, you'll want to have sex with a robot.
Yeah, I've actually got the personality type that I think that's most likely to have sex with a robot. And it's a group I would call married people.
Yeah.
If you're familiar with them.
Or men.
Yeah.
Men in general. You can buy these dolls from Japan. They're beautiful, and they come to your house. They show up. They're on the doorstep. They're life size. They're exactly as you order them. The best thing is they do not talk back, and they do exactly what they're doing.
Oh, it's ideal. Can we finish with a story from the Mail and an ex who really holds a grudge, Scott?
Well, a man is caught urinating on the grave of his ex-wife he divorced 48 years ago by a woman's stunned children. He was. There's some footage. There had been a hidden camera set up by family members, and the man was seen in the film pulling up in his SUV, and he gets out and he unzips his pants, and they don't know what's going on, and then he just starts to relieve himself right over the grave. And Michael Murphy, whose mother Linda was lying 6 feet under, said that it broke his heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very strange thing. I mean, don't you think, Scott? It's like, let it go. Yeah. Move on, baby.
But you know what?
48 years.
Sometimes someone says something and you just can't disconnect. You know what I mean?
Oh, you're right.
Are there some people?
It's like a fixation, isn't it?
You just can't let it go. I've been in relationships with someone where 2 years later I've been like, when you said, and then it's over because of that. And they weren't sure why. Over those 2 years, they got angrier and angrier, and then they figured it out. I think basically people should keep their mouths shut in relationships.
But it wasn't it Nelson Mandela who said that bitterness is the poison that destroys the pot that it sits in?
Or seasons it.
Yeah. Right, that would be it. Do you think there's something quite odd about the fact that the new partner is sitting in the car waiting for him to finish his urination?
A little bit strange.
Is that what was happening? Was the new partner
So she sat there in the car park?
Yeah, she did.
Oh, my God.
And this woman died at the age of 66 5 years ago. So
and he divorced her 48 years ago.
Yeah, so he's been waiting. That is determination. He's been waiting the whole time. And maybe this woman sitting in the car is like, you know what, just go do it. You've been waiting I've been hearing you talk about this again and again and again. Just give it what you got.
But bags of feces as well. It's, what did she do to him?
Yeah.
I want to know.
Well, marriage is hard. It's a compromise.
Well, exactly. That's right. I mean, it's an odd thing, isn't it? I don't know how you feel about whether you want to be remembered in that way when you finally pass on.
What, instead of a tombstone, you want a bag of feces
Well, that's
with your name?
I mean, you could
Fondly
be
remembered.
Leo, you could be so controversial as a comedian. You could be even cancelled in the graveyard.
Yeah, I think I might have to be buried at sea.
Yeah. It might have been that she talked during a game. It might have been that.
Well, it could well be that. I tell you something.
Piss you off,
on that funereal note, gentlemen, can I say that you did not die a comedy death tonight? It's been a brilliant conversation. My thanks.
Are we invited back?
Hugely talented. I wouldn't go that far. Let's not get carried away, as they say.
I get those too.
May I thank Scott Capurro, outstanding comedian, and Leo Kearse as well. Chaps, come back and see us soon. Let me tell you that this hit franchise of Headliners is 7 days a week. We are stripped across the week, so 11 o'clock every night, do join us. It'll be the brilliant Andrew Doyle or the wonderful Simon Evans. And I want to thank you for your company over the last 3 days. It's been 3 really busy shows. Couldn't do it without you. Loved the emails, loved having your company. So do join me again on Friday at 9 o'clock and have a great week. Thanks for watching.